Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon to you, because we are the Chocolate Bros. It's nice to see you all figuratively. We can't literally see you.
We cannot. Not
We
yet.
are the Chocolate Bros. I'm Brian. He's Adam. We have a chocolate company called Fortunato Chocolate. You can find us at worldwideweb.fortunatochocolate.com. That is the place where you can find our story. You can buy our chocolate and other confections. And we are here on another episode of our review show. We want to review chocolate. We've gone over it before. It's the summer. It's a little bit hard for people to buy our chocolate because we don't use thermally protective shipping materials. So we wanted to give our fantastic customers that we love and we thank and we're grateful for the opportunity to know what we think about some other chocolates that might be available at a grocery store or any other kind of store that's near them. Could be a Walmart, a Target, even a gas station. Sometimes we do stuff that you can get at a gas station or a specialty market like a QFC or a PCC. And these might be alternatives to them since they can't really ship our stuff very well in the summer. I am a chocolate guy and a cacao expert. I lived 10 years in the Amazon jungle fermenting and drying cacao. My brother is a chocolate expert and connoisseur. Enthusiast, also a published author, soon to be on the New York Times bestseller list because his book is brilliant, called Finding Fortunato.
It's about him.
And
I wrote it, but it's about him.
I've spoken 8 minutes now, I think.
Yeah.
What do you get to say?
He lived an interesting life, and then I wrote everything down.
Ironically, you're going to get the credit for the book, and I had to go live in the jungle.
I've tried to write other stuff, but my own life isn't interesting enough
to write about. But the book about you has gotten
a treatise on sweater vests.
Yeah, I used to wear sweater vests. That's not relevant here. The other reason why we're reviewing these chocolate bars is just to remember what other chocolate tastes like, because I would say for the last several years, we've had tunnel vision and have mostly been eating our own chocolate, which is delicious.
That's correct.
And I have assumed for the last several years that we have by far the best chocolate on the market.
Yes.
And we wanted to test that assumption. And we're showing nicely against these other bars, but we have come across some surprises.
Yeah.
Which has been pretty satisfying.
It's no surprise that there's other good chocolate out there.
Yes, but I think we've had a couple of bars that we considered to be maybe big industrial brands that have surprised us with how thoughtful they were.
That's true. A Ghirardelli bar, a Lindt bar.
A Lindt bar. And then on the other side, we've had some brands that we expected more out of and have been wildly disappointed.
That's true.
So we won't, you don't know until you play the game, right? You could have a 16 playing a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, and you would assume the 1 seed's going to win, but you don't know until you play the game, right? You like that sports analogy?
Sports analogies, just...
Listen, you're on the fairway. You think you got a straight shot, but you don't know until you swing the club, right?
That's right. You got to play the game. You make 0% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah, hey, you can't kick a lucky goal unless you're on the field.
That's
standard. Right. All right, so without further ado, today we are going to
There's been more than enough ado.
Yeah, too much ado. So without further ado, this is the bar we're going to be taking a look at. Blanxart. I've been seeing these bars around for many years now. You have never seen it?
No, I don't. I honestly cannot recall ever seeing a Blanxart.
Do you spend a lot of time at the grocery store traditionally in the chocolate aisle looking at the bars?
Not until we started doing this show, and now I'm paying a little more attention.
So because I've always been the marketing guy for our company, I've always been interested in going to the chocolate section and taking a look at bars. And the reason why this company has always caught my attention is, first of all, they have these really sort of simple brown craft paper packaging, which I have always found interesting. With minimal design.
We have a very consciously simple packaging paradigm.
And then also, they got these big, thick bars. Really big, thick bars.
Yeah.
And then the other...
And it's molded even thicker. It's got this kind of this mold with a like a convex shape in it. It's really thick for
And if I remember, I think it's a pretty good deal, too.
I mean, 200 grams, 7 ounces of chocolate.
That's a big bar of chocolate.
That is a massive chocolate bar. Do you know what you paid for this?
Maybe a decent price.
Like $7, $8?
Less, I think. Maybe $5.99.
Okay.
And we'll have a little bit of an explanation for why the pricing is pretty affordable here in a second.
Yes.
But then also, I just found it interesting that this chocolate is manufactured in Spain. And you don't see a lot of chocolate companies coming out of Spain.
There is so Spain obviously was the country that colonized the West, and it was the first country to bring cacao back to Europe and to popularize it. It was in drinking form.
Correct.
But Spain has the longest history in the New World of
Fair point. But none of the big chocolate companies, almost all of the big chocolate companies, the
Correct.
really big companies are either American, Belgium, French,
Swiss, German too.
German, but in Europe, the company with the longest, or the country with the longest history of buying and selling cacao and using cacao for chocolate, doesn't really have one of the big Mondelez. I don't know where those guys are from.
I don't think that's.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
So I found that interesting. Now I'm gonna go ahead, Brian. Oh, you got your glasses ready?
Yeah, I got my glasses ready.
Why don't you give us a little breakdown, a little analysis of the packaging?
So the packaging is great. It's got some traceability information, which I like.
And what's on the inside? Is it just the craft paper and nothing?
So
Nothing on the inside.
No,
just a little wax paper on the inside.
And a little wax paper, which is an interesting take. The ingredients are very basic. This is just cocoa, sugar, cocoa butter, and vanilla. Now, vanilla is often used for beans that are not as well post-processed.
Correct.
They have to be roasted quite a bit, and the vanilla cuts an over-roasty flavor.
And it can cover up poor fermentation as well.
But it can. So vanilla can be used as a covering agent, but also
as an accent.
To be fair, it can also just be an accentuating agent. It's not unheard of for vanilla to be. Typically, in a higher-end sort of store chocolate, vanilla is not uncommon. So we can't really draw any inferences.
We can't draw it. Now, I noticed here... first of all, it's a 60% cacao, which is not a really, really dark dark chocolate.
What we call our flagship dark is a 68%, and that's considered light by a lot of people in the industry. And I just would say also that the front says vegan, gluten-free, and pure ingredients. So just so we know, there's no impurities.
No impure. That's sort of an interesting marketing word to put because it doesn't actually mean anything.
It's meaningless, yes.
Yeah, okay. And then I just want to point out here, I didn't see any fair trade information or anything, but maybe you could check it online. And it says it's made with cocoa beans from Ghana. So we're just looking at probably, I would assume before we taste it, we're looking at probably sort of a generic flavored cacao, and that could also go part of the way towards explaining why you can get a big 7-ounce bar for a pretty reasonable price.
100% recyclable packaging, it says here, and then there is some kind of I don't know what that means. But
that looks like an environmental thing.
Yeah. So it's a really basic. There's not a lot of information. The beans coming from Ghana suggest that there'll be some pretty bulk beans. It's got a good aroma.
But it's got it's got this sort of typical West African.
Yeah, there's a lot of cocoa butter.
And that West African flavor is the flavor that you're thinking about in general when you think about most mass-produced dark chocolate.
A lot of cocoa butter. You can tell from the melt on the fingers.
Yep. And you can also tell by the way the cocoa butter kind of masks the flavor of the cocoa beans.
And I see why they use vanilla. Fermentation problems.
For a 60%.
Right off the bat.
Yeah, and you can taste the vanilla.
Right off the bat.
So you can see what they're doing.
The beans are under-fermented.
The beans are not well fermented. It's not a good genetic variety. And as a result, this is a 60% dark chocolate with, it's pretty bland. It's pretty bland. It's not very sweet. It's pretty bland. What you get mostly is the texture of the cocoa butter and the vanilla in terms of flavor.
Right.
And then bitterness from unproperly fermented cacao.
It's not overly bitter, but what there is a slightly off note. And it's an off note that comes from under-fermented beans and presence of beans of what are called slaty. When you cut open a well-fermented cocoa bean, it almost looks like a human brain in there. It's got lots of little folds and wrinkles. Every now and then you cut one open and it's just flat. And it's got this weird grain structure, and it's what's called a slaty bean. It's considered an imperfection, and it counts against you when you're having your fermentation graded. What you typically want to see on a fine cacao is 85 or more % well-fermented beans that have turned dark brown, that have that right. They do a cut test of 100 beans, and my guess is that this cacao is fermented at about 70% maybe with a high slaty percentage. And they have roasted heavy and added lots of cocoa butter to improve the texture and the vanilla to cover up some of the stuff. It's, by the way,
great analysis.
It's not like blowing my mind how bad it is.
No, because they've done a good job managing it.
That's right.
That's right. So what they've done is, and that bitterness that I was referring to before, I'm now realizing, because you just mentioned it, it's the roast.
It's the roast.
It's
That's
it's the dark roast. It's not a what I wasn't necessarily tasting was the bad fermentation. I'm tasting the dark roast.
Yes.
As it runs on, it gets more and more bitter. So what they've done is they've bought just bulk West African cacao.
Yeah.
That's already not a good genetic variety.
Right.
That hasn't been
Questionably
fermented.
Yep.
Questionably fermented, and then they have managed it to the best of their ability, such that you have an edible dark chocolate. It's not like a really good dark chocolate.
I'm just trying to see if there's any note from the cacao itself that I can
It doesn't really even taste very chocolatey. For a dark chocolate, it's not very chocolatey. What you taste more than anything are the various things that they've done to dance around the sort of unfined nature of the cacao itself.
It's a little grassy. There's a little bit of a green flavor, which is the under fermentation. And a little bit of a off, almost rubber note from the slaty beans in there. Yeah, it's not properly fermented. It's not vinegary, so if you have a really robust fermentation, it creates a lot of acetic acid or vinegar. And then often you'll get a little bit of a vinegar, of a sour note, kind of, unless they have a proper drying to allow that vinegar to escape, or they really conch it well. I think this is conched well, but you're right. I think this has been an exercise for them in overcoming some inherent problems with the beans, rather than showing what the beans can do.
Which is why it's not really chocolatey. It's cocoa buttery. It's got its vanilla.
Yeah.
It's got its roast. But you're not even getting this sort of generic African cacao flavor that you get in most dark chocolates.
That comes through more on the tail. I would say what stays in my mouth, it is actually growing in chocolatiness, but there's almost nothing there. It's just, it's sort of like at the end of a so-so song. Instead of bringing it to a close, they kind of let that last note run out.
And when you're eating a dark chocolate, even if it's let's just say it's a Hershey's Special Dark. At some point when you eat the dark chocolate, you're hoping to get that moment where you go,
right,
chocolate.
Yeah.
I'm eating some chocolate, man.
Yeah.
One way or another. And it never really happens here.
No.
Because all of these different ingredients are covering up the cacao.
Yeah. And you're right. It's such a massive bar for the price.
Yeah.
There's no question at all. And they're not saying anything about direct trade, fair trade, helping farmers. It's clear that this is the bulkest of bulk
They've
cacao.
taken the bulkest of bulk cacao. They've given it interesting packaging. And then they have danced around the cacao with other ingredients.
Yeah, this is the stuff that's causing the global cacao crisis right here, because for them to make this bar for this price, the farmer is absolutely getting screwed. Excuse my language, but the farmer cannot possibly be making a subsistence wage.
Yeah.
It's impossible, literally impossible. The Ghanaian government ministry that controls cocoa production is called COCOBOD, and they pay a substandard price, even compared to the world price, to their farmers. Therefore, the farmers cannot invest. Their production goes down. Their yields go down. They're susceptible to allowing illegal mining on their property. This is why slavery exists in Africa.
It works its way back through the supply chain.
Because when you have this much chocolate for this low of a price, it means that the farmer is being kept in abject poverty and cannot afford to pay for the labor that is required to just produce the cacao. So, it's not that bad of a bar, but it implies a lot of things that are really quite odious.
And in truth, it's not that bad,
No,
I guess.
the chocolate itself is not awful.
But it's not good either. It's not good either.
It's meh at best.
Yeah.
But it implies a lot of really dismal things about the industry and about the situation in Ghana. And for that reason, I cannot
do not like
recommend
it. And also just the way it's kind of made and packaged and distributed. Because the place that I bought this was at sort of a specialty grocery store. So the way it's packaged and presented and distributed also, for my mind, it makes you feel like you might be getting a high quality bar at a discount price.
Right. But
it's packaged up and marketed in a certain way. But I could not in any way, shape, or form say that this was like fine chocolate. No. If you're looking for a delicious dark chocolate, I would not go for this bar.
No,
even at the price, I just don't think it's a good experience.
The chocolate's a C. But knowing what we know about how they can afford to make a bar this big for this low a price,
yeah.
I'm giving it an F, not because the people at what is it
Blanxart.
called again? not because the people at Blanxart massacred the chocolate so badly, but I just happen to know from personal experience what a big bar at this price implies for farmers, and it's an unjust system. And this is the kind of bar that perpetuates that unjust system. And it leads, I'm not trying to be overzealous here, it leads to child slavery.
Yeah, it does.
This is the kind of bar that leads to child slavery. I can't beat around the bush on it, so I don't recommend it.
Yep. Pretty strong feelings. I think you've spoken what you had to say.
I have kids,
and
man.
I have I agree with all of that, and I just for other reasons. I mean, if you're gonna work really hard dancing around bad cacao, you might as well just work really hard to make something delicious.
Cacao,
just get good cacao, pay for it, make it delicious. Maybe sell it a little bit more expensively, but make it a good value.
Make it a good value
because you're paying a high price for something that's much better.
And I have to say, the longer the tail goes on,
this is not
less I'm
to be honest with you, this is not really not good chocolate. So all right then, sorry Blanxart, Mr. and Mrs. Blanxart, if you run across us in the street, we're sorry.
Yeah, we were just being honest.
Hey,
That wasn't not personal. It's just a comment. You're probably fine people. I don't know. Yeah. But your chocolate, didn't make the cut today.
We didn't do it for us. So
that's right. There can only be one.
All right. Well,
yours isn't it.
If you want to compare our 68% dark chocolate up against this 60% dark chocolate,
you're gonna
or any of our other products, if you want to see whether we have the credibility to be speaking about other people's products, how we just have, check us out at www.fortunatochocolate.com or come visit us. We're in Issaquah, Washington. You could visit us at either of our 2 retail locations. And we're in the shop together on Saturday mornings. If you want to come meet us in person, we'd love to see you. Anything else to add before we sign off, Brian?
Thank you very much for watching. If you could smash like, if you could hit thumbs up, if you could subscribe, that would be wonderful. It helps us, and it helps good information about chocolate get out there. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.